Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain Chapter, Mr. Ming, Cybersecurity and Governance Chapter, Dr. Pakarawan Prasampani, Digital Entrepreneurship and Digital Fund Chapter, our regular CIOs, CSOs, CXOs, CISOs, and CDOs, honorary guests, ladies, gentlemen, and our live chat team. Welcome and thank you for taking time to join us today, this morning. I'm your host, Thompson is my name, and I am one of the founding members of ASEAN CIO Association. I'm based in Bangkok. Allow me to just begin with some housekeeping, as this is a public live chat. Some of you are watching from Facebook Live. I would also like to highlight that in case your name or your photo or your voice could be captured. So with PDPA, we would also like to emphasize that ASEAN CIO do not send out or sell your contact details to any third party nor collaborator. And as you also sign up or have your staff to sign up on behalf of you, which also means to say that you have granted us some the consent to reach you for any newsletters or email blasts or updates. But should you opt not to receive any of this, please drop us a note so that we can delete your contact permanently. So throughout the entire session, should you have any questions, you can raise your hand under the participant icon or text into the group chat column so that we can attend to your questions after, or in between the chat, depending on the Trailblazer, whether if they want to take the question there and then. And of course, our president, Tan Chaitalana Tipet, was the PTT Group CIO leading the conversation with his fellow CIOs from different industries, all rooting for a great friendship and collaboration possibility. They basically pull in and coin this whole entire idea of ASEAN CIO Association. And that was like really far before ASEAN Open. So most of the personnel in ASEAN CIO Association are individuals with grounds to a common goal of a digitally strong ASEAN. And we have been working on close alliances and have formed several MOUs. In fact, also beyond the conversation of just ASEAN in support to the huge conversation of the ASEAN digital divide and also aligning to ASEAN digital master plan. So as many of you have given a lot of feedback and expressed interest in ASEAN CIO Association, we'd like to thank you. And just also some quick update, we have unofficially yet to launch this membership formally, but after this whole session, this 2 months, in fact, sorry, not 2 months, to the end of the year, whoever gets signed up during this period, you don't have to pay any membership fee. But we will have a session just to talk about membership, but not today's session. Okay, so with pandemic, our flagship event, the annual ASEAN CIO Forum, where we used to hold it every once a year. The next one will happen in Vietnam, as per align with our Vietnamese counterpart in 2022. And they really hope to host it in the fashion of physical, seeing face to face instead of going online. We'll see how possible that could be. Today's conversation, reframing digital transformation that generate impact on businesses, opportunities and challenges, is a topic close to heart of many. How this digital transformation is gonna work, and many have also expressed, on how they could actually escalate or swim along the change and leverages on all possible technologies to get our life better. This is actually one of the quote by one of the futurist, Gert Leonard. He used very much to say that once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough, but now business as usual is dead. So it's not enough anymore. And he mentioned that exponential technologies are rapidly changing our lives. Society, that we will need different skills to get much better at driving change, or we will be driven by it. So anything that can be digitized and automated will be taken over. Anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. So there is always a question about human or technology. But regardless of what industry you are in, digital transformation is no longer a bet in companies, but how companies have to wire themselves. And today digital channel live chat focus on launching our 3 key chapters that industry long waited for. So the agenda from the morning, we would be, hear me introducing, and then I'll be having our president addressing the keynote, followed by the 3 Trailblazers that will share their vision, their perspective on how the chapters would serve in ASEAN development for digital transformation. And then we will get on to a plenary discussion where questions could always come in at the point of time. And then we will have, a Q&A session, and then we will wrap up the session. So without further ado, let me, invite ASEAN CIO President Tan Chaitalan to deliver his keynote address. As one of the founding members of ASEAN CIO Association, Tan Chaitalan Atipet has been elected unanimously as president to lead this organization. He started off as a young engineer in PTT Group in Thailand, and he rose his way up to lead PTT ICT as CEO before his final few years as R&D and Sustainability Senior EVP before he retired from Thailand's largest corporation. So PTT is one of the listed in Fortune Global 500 companies. So a highly qualified individual, even he actually didn't retire because the industry is engaging him very, very actively. During COVID, he led a big conversation on COVID rescue team, or the COVID digital conqueror team. So in 2018 itself, he also took the helm in Thailand Digital Government Agency as the chairman, leading a full digital transformation with its members. So let me welcome Tan Chaitalan Atipet to have this opening keynote address. Tan Chaitalan Atipet, Tan Chaitalan.
Hi.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hong Sin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, friend of ASEAN CIO Association. Again, thank you for Hong Sin for your introduction. It is my honor to be with you again today for actually one of our ASEAN CIO Association moving forward. It is my honor to welcome you and welcome our new 3 chapter presidents. Well, the first is our ladies, Dr. Patrawan, as president of Digital Entrepreneurships and Funding chapter. And second is our respective gentleman, Mr. Ng Hu Minh, for our cybersecurity governance chapter. And the last, the most expected in AI, artificial intelligence and blockchain chapter, our new president, Professor Lam Kwok Yan. ASEAN CIO Association is taking these valuable opportunities to introduce our 3 new chapters to serve the dynamic of ASEAN digital landscape. As witnessed by all of us, how it has changed the business environment and increasing impact of the new technologies that have helped, especially during the pandemic crisis. Technology has played a vital role in the emergence of e-business and its applications to incorporated strategically to propel business forward. Reframing digital transformation that generate impacts on business opportunities and challenges. In the future digital world, lots of data are collected in our daily life in details of almost every step taken by people, as long as you have a connected device. Data is of course, is no longer a new for all of us. And the big data is becoming the center of attention for AI, artificial intelligence, as well as cybersecurity. Digital transformation has been a huge conversation for the last few years, as it's assimilated into our daily life, like online shopping, digital payment, food ordering, or more. How this new digital society could possibly impact the way we live, eat, sleep, or more. But do you know what effect will digitalization have on the world of work? How it is changed your career design, and it's influencing the nature of employment in different areas for the new normal. Who will be entrepreneur for the future? Who will innovate and transform ideas and knowledge into new products and services? What else will continue to grow in permanence? Will robot really work for all or part of our job? ASEAN CIO Association remind you that to be called a digital leader, we need a digital leadership license in order to drive in the fastest lane, on the right or the leftmost lane, on the digital transformation. Many leaders feel it's the very terms of digital transformation has become overused, but the matter of business mandates is behind the term to redesign, to reframe, to change, to transform, to innovate, and to be agile in your industry from the old operation models, both private, government, and citizens, young or old generation, all of us. It has taken ASEAN CIO Association to launch this chapter only a new few reasons. Simply, the first, as a non-profit organization, self-funded, and people-focused organization, we are selective on who coming on board to serve. The second, digital transformation demands the right leadership in each industry to drive fragile and fast-paced economy. Leaders who are appointed by academia may find it extremely challenging to serve the change, while the leaders who are appointed by experience and have gained respect are just really hard to find. The third, ASEAN CIO Association have taken some time to launch our chapters as we were in the search of the right person and not perfect to run the roles. Each of them has a vision which aligns to what ASEAN CIO Association strives to be. And with them, we share a common vision to serve ASEAN digital transformation into a new norm, new economy that is sensitive on all hot topics: digitalization, transformation, environmental, and health subjects. Again, welcome to our new challenge, our future together. ASEAN as one may not only our dream. No one alone can not make it happen. Imagine of no boundary, communicate, connected, collaborate, consolidate. Together, we will make it happen. Not for you, not for me, but for the digital ASEAN, for the happiness of our ASEAN peoples. Thank you very much for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Panchaychalan, for a very encouraging, grounding keynote, where it really brings us back into the conversation of togetherness, where it encourages us a lot, in terms of digital transformation, the whole entire digital development. We do not forget about, the people that are behind us or ahead of us, but coming together matters as one. So in the conversation of propelling business forward, generally all industries just cannot ignore the whole context and conversation on digitization or digitalization. So again, deeply appreciate your sharing, Panchaychalan. Thank you very much. And now, allow me to bring on our first trailblazer to address CIO, foundational yet compelling choices to lead digital initiatives, optimizing the use of AI and blockchain. Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain Chapter President, Professor Lam Hock Yen. He's somebody that I knew him like many years back when I think of privilege. I think this is one of his professional entrepreneurship journey. I think that was way back maybe in 2012 or even earlier in 1997. But Professor Lam is a professor of computer science and director of Nanyang Technopreneurship Center at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. He's currently also the executive director of the Strategic Center for Research in Privacy-Preserving Technologies and Systems. In short, it's like SPRIT. Director of NTU, Spirit Smart Nation Research Center. And he is also the part-time secondman to the Interpol as a consultant as a consultant at the Cyber and New Technology Innovation. His credential is extremely impressive. And for many of you who have known him, would have got very familiar with how he has, grown in the field of even AI. So of late, or rather in 2018, Professor Lam founded Tao Express Private Limited, an NTU startup which specializes in AI and data analytic technologies for smart cities application. Tao is right now a spin-off of the Intelligent Case Retrieval System project, a collaboration between NTU and Singapore Supreme Court. And he has really a lot of impressive credentials here. So I shall not continue reading a long list of him, but rather bring him on to introduce to all of you. Professor Lam, please.
Thanks, thanks, Honsim, for the introduction. Good morning, Mr. Chacharan, President of the ASEAN Chief Information Officer Association, Council members, ladies and gentlemen. Today marks the launch of the AI and blockchain chapter, together with the other two chapters, the cybersecurity and governance chapter, and the digital entrepreneurship and funding chapter. This is made possible by the passion and commitment of the pioneers who have been so passionate and committed to do everything good for the ASEAN community. I'm so excited to be part of this meaningful organization and by the huge responsibility given to me to lead the AI and blockchain chapter. I look forward to working with you all closely to bring the chapter to its success. The growth of the digital economy has led to a dramatic increase in the adoption of internet applications and services used by billions of users. Digital transformations is unavoidable for enterprises to remain relevant and to be competitive in the digital era. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, data analytics are some of the key enablers of digital transformation that form the basis of intelligent and automated systems such as smart cities or smart nations. To gain the ability to sustain and grow in the face of fierce competition in this digital arena, organizations need to be able to adapt their business operations to technology innovations in order to enhance their value propositions and improve productivity. Now, in this connection, artificial intelligence has been widely adopted as the basis of intelligent systems, while blockchain has been widely accepted as the game changer in fintech innovation due to its ability to support decentralization and trust in the cyberspace without a central authority, which is a very important aspect, especially when we talk about cross-border or international trade or transactions. And this is especially meaningful in the context of ASEAN Chief Information Officers Association for the purpose of supporting or encouraging cross-border collaborations. Now, the mission of the Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain chapter is to serve the ASEAN communities as an enabler for all the digital technology initiatives in the ASEAN region, so as to build a smart and intelligent ASEAN. Now, with that mission, I would like to outline some of the short and midterm planned activities that I have in mind for the chapter. There are 4 important focus areas that the chapter will be working hard on. These include artificial intelligence, technology, and industry ecosystem development. This includes not only the adoption of AI techniques, but also related topics such as data sharing and form an ecosystem around startups and new ventures towards smart nations and smart cities. And I see a strong neat and compelling reason to put more effort in these aspects of AI. That is to bring in more technology awareness and capability development in artificial intelligence. Basically, a lot of people still have the impression that AI is about facial recognitions, image processing, image recognitions, or machine translation. But nowadays, the use of AI has been so widespread and pervasive that we basically are being influenced by the use of AI in almost every aspect of our life. That include not only the image processing or speech processing or language processing, but the most important in recent years is the automated or intelligent decision making. And this is how organizations can aim to improve operational efficiency and productivity. So with that, it involves a whole ecosystem of efforts involving not only the technology developers or researchers, but also entrepreneurs who can turn the technology idea into products and services, and that is available to the users. And this will involve the development of a platform or infrastructure to make this happen. As I mentioned earlier, data sharing, for example, artificial intelligence is based on machine learning, and machine learning needs to have access to gigantic size of data. And being smaller in size for organizations in these regions, the amount of data organizations can acquire or gather tend to be smaller compared to international giants or bigger countries. So with that, data sharing is an important means to level the playing field. But when it comes to data sharing, which plays an important part in enhancing artificial intelligence, we need to deal with the data governance issue. And also when it comes to the use of AI, there's also a concern about the ethics behind the use of AI. So in the context of technology awareness and capability development, I would plan to organize more initiatives or activities that aim to promote the better understanding of the different types of AI techniques, as mentioned earlier, not only about image processing, speech processing, but it could also include document analytics and how AI is being used in different types of industry sectors or application domains. So, and apart from the technology side, and as I've also mentioned before, how to transform or translate technology into something that is of commercial value is also play an important part. So the process of commercialization and translation of technology form the core part of entrepreneurship, which of course I will have to work very closely with another chapter on entrepreneurship and funding. And as I said, no one can work in silo nowadays. So when we talk about the key initiatives in artificial intelligence and blockchain, we look at the technology awareness and capability development. We have to have access to many different stakeholders, and entrepreneurship is one of them. And with regards to data sharing that help enhance AI capabilities Data governance is an important issue. The protection of the data is an important issue. So for that, I will also work very closely with the cybersecurity and governance chapter, so as to make sure that when we look at AI and blockchain, we don't look at it in silo. We also try to address the ethics and governance issue behind the adoption of AI. And likewise, we also work closely with the entrepreneurship and funding chapter in order to make sure we have enough stakeholders to form the ecosystems, to turn ideas into reality. And when it comes to blockchain, as mentioned before, it's now widely accepted as a key game changer in fintech innovations. With the creation of the idea of blockchain for supporting sharing of data in a decentralized and widely distributed manner without a trusted third party or authority. This is extremely suitable for cross-country applications or transactions. So I hope through this chapter, we can organize efforts or projects to realize the vision of the ASEAN by building intelligent systems or smart city application systems that could be cross-country, covering different parts of ASEAN. And for that, we aim to promote the development of a blockchain platform to support cross-border processing, identify a number of strategic applications, and initiate some proof of concept implementations. So more specifically, for the first area, we aim to focus on the technology and the industry of AI. More specific activities will include to develop, adopt, and promote AI techniques to facilitate the adoption of digital transformation within ASEAN. For example, we promote the understanding of AI to go beyond the more familiar image recognitions, but also other aspects like automated decision-making. And we also aim to promote support and guidance to technology startups to build intelligent systems or to be the driving force behind smart cities initiatives in ASEAN. The second is the capability and awareness development in AI and blockchain. There's a shortage of skilled and competent AI and blockchain human resource in the ASEAN region. Hence, it's important the association work on developing AI and blockchain capabilities and awareness in the region so that we have sufficient skilled and competent professionals to support the digitalization effort in ASEAN, and also a well-informed end users who always keep their minds open when it comes to digital transformation of their organization, even though they are not specialized in the AI or blockchain technologies itself. So that is the purpose of the awareness and capability development. For that purpose, we'll be partnering with other stakeholders from industries, international communities, and other more advanced countries in building AI capabilities in ASEAN, not only for the digital technology developers, but also for end users. And we'll also aim to identify initiatives to create opportunities for technical exchange or sharing platform among students in ASEAN to nurture their skills and to interact among themselves. Thirdly is the policy or the governance aspects of AI, because of the importance of understanding the need for using AI in an ethical manner. And there are lots of concern about abuse of new technologies that can intrude privacy, that could intrude people's or disrupt people's daily life in a negative manner. So there's also a need to look into AI ethics when we are looking at the promotion and adoptions of AI. As we always teach our students on the innovation process, we look at the new technologies, we identify, we aim to ask what are the potential applications of the new technologies. We try to identify who are the potential users of the new technologies and how to derive commercial value so as to use innovations to drive economy. And equally important is to manage the risk due to innovation. So we always look at new technology as a tool to help us improve our life or work, or as a product to help us look at commercializations and entrepreneurship, and as a threat. New technology can do good things, but if it's not handled properly, can cause damage as well. And this is the reason behind the emphasis for AI ethics. And as mentioned earlier, AI is based on machine learning. Machine learning needs to access a lot of data. And there is a trend or lots of incentives for organizations to share data. So data sharing across countries, across organizations, or across business units within the organizations is another trend. So given all these data protection regulations or governance framework, there is a strong need to look into how to comply with all the relevant regulations and governance when it comes to the use of data for supporting AI. So for that, I will work very closely with the cybersecurity and governance chapter, as mentioned, because AI will be able to do us good if we use it properly. And therefore, we should manage the risk from the start. And in the areas of fintech innovation, it's also important to ensure blockchain applications such as virtual asset trading are not abused by cyber criminals and exploited to facilitate financial crime. So on one hand, we, as part of the technology capability development and awareness promotions, we encourage the adoptions of blockchains to support innovative cross-country or trans-border digital transactions. But at the same time, we should also look at how to avoid all this innovation in fintech from being misused to facilitate or support financial crime. Lastly, as you can see, there are lots of work to be done, and I won't be able to do all this by myself. Hence, I call upon men and women in the AI and blockchain community to step forward, to contribute your time and expertise to help work together on these initiatives. I request, if possible, one representative from each ASEAN countries to form the EXCO, and I'll work closely with the Secretariat Office to start this process. Thanks once again for entrusting me in this important mission, and I will work hard on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Lam, for this very passionate commitment as one of our chapter president or as one of the trailblazer. I'm very, very touched. And I believe the president of ASEAN CIO, who is still on this call, would probably be having a call with you later on. There are really a lot of good things that you have brought up. And in particular, you know, those key pointers that you have mentioned. So AI should be embraced by humankind as it changes, as it drives to like unprecedented new level of creativity, productivity, and even societal advancement. So you touch on a very important point about ethics, you know, on the ethical concern that mounts up as AI takes, you know, a very key role in making a lot of big decisions in many industries. Where, you know, I believe that I already received one question with regards to this ethical concern. If it is okay, I mean, we'll ask the question later on. And Prof. Lam also mentioned about the work that he's going to do for the chapters, as in like the knowledge sharing, and he emphasized again on raising awareness, tapping up in terms of human capacity development, creating a platform for exchange. His emphasis on working closely with both chapters, cybersecurity and governance chapter, as well as the digital entrepreneurship and funding chapter. All these are extremely vital for a great start or a good start for 2022. But of course, this quarter is also the time where the Trailblazers will be working closely with you know, Tan Tetilan to digest on the plan. And most of all, he's actually opening, giving everybody an open ticket, as he emphasized that, you know, he one person cannot handle, and he's inviting all the ASEAN member states to at least send in a ESCO, you know, somebody who is passionate, who wants to support the development of AI for ASEAN digital transformation to step forward. Later on, I will give the contact, you know, to those who is interested. And thank you very much, Prof. Lam, for sharing on your vision and also the commitment to drive AI and blockchain chapter. So now, without further ado, I'd like to call upon our next trailblazer, who is a very known figure in the cybersecurity industry, as in not just within Singapore, but he is like generally every in global, I like to say. His work, I must emphasize, is not, or rather never academic, but rather he put a lot of actions to work. He's a driver in cybersecurity, and he usually don't follow the norms. He go for something that, you know, that is very uncomfortable, but he bring it on to materialize the work that he believes in. And this person is Mr. Ng Hu Ming. I knew him way back in year 2000, and he has been very nurturing in this cybersecurity industry. And Mr. Ng has, in fact, in 2005, he has again a long credential And many of you who are on this call generally already know him. So I'm not going to read through his resume, but rather I'd like to mention about, other than what people think he is, serving the government, he actually had a period of time in 2005 where he served as a CEO in one of the private sector. The company name is PCSS, and it specializes in homeland and cybersecurity businesses. And under Hu Ming's leadership, under Mr. Ng's leadership, the company has successfully won and implemented many large-scale projects in Singapore and in the region. And of course, further to his entrepreneurship journey, he was then back into the government sector to serve as a director in charge of this newly formed SITSA, Singapore Infocom Technology Security Authority. And subsequently, in 2015, Singapore government decided to establish a centralized agency to coordinate all cybersecurity matters. That is called Singapore National Cybersecurity Agency. And this agency is created under the Prime Minister's office. And Mr. Ng was second to CSA to help build this whole entire operation. So without further ado, let me welcome Mr. Ng, where we are very privileged to actually have him to lead this very vital conversation. As years ago, he taught me about cybersecurity. It's not product, it's not feature, it's not function. It is actually an enabler to the whole entire digital ecosystem. So let me call upon this man. Mr. Ng, the show is yours.
Thank you, Hong Sim. Just do a quick audio check. Can you all hear me loud and clear? Okay, great. Very good morning, Mr. Kun Chaichiran, President of the ASEAN Chief Information Association, esteemed council members, ladies and gentlemen. Today, as you know, marks a very important milestone that the association has achieved with the launch of 3 chapters. This is only possible with a pioneer like you, especially Hong Sim, who are so passionate and committed to do something good for the ASEAN community. Your dedications and selflessness to volunteer your time, contribute your experiences and expertise to the association is applaudable, sir. I'm thankful and honored to be accepted to this exciting and meaningful association, and a huge responsibility given to me to lead the cybersecurity and governance chapters. And I'm looking forward to work with you all closely and seek your invaluable advice and guidance to bring the chapters to a success. Let me take a few minutes to do a self-introduction. I actually just retired from the public service after 30 over years working in the cybersecurity field in the government. My last held role was the Deputy CE, National Cyber Resilience of the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. As the DCE NCR, I formulate operations policies and initiative for CSA, strategically engage local, regional, and international players in the cybersecurity landscape to facilitate knowledge exchange and threat intelligence sharing. I also lead the National Cybersecurity Command Center in operational response to cyber crisis in Singapore, and support any WOG incident response to major attack, as well as to synchronize and coordinate with other WOG agencies in operations responses, and to position CSA as a technical expert and top leader that is able to anticipate emerging threats and swiftly resolve crises in the national cybersecurity landscape. I was also responsible in protecting the critical information infrastructure systems in Singapore against external threat to national security, which include cyber terrorism and cyber espionage. Besides that, I also serve as a chairman and members of the various national, regional, and international committee. I was the chairman of the ASEAN Network Security Action Council, which I know some of the council members who are also my colleagues then. Co-chair of the ASEAN Regional Forum's intersessional meeting on ICT security with Japan and Malaysia. And I'm also members of the local expert panels evaluation committee of the National Research Foundation Singapore on cybersecurity research. And I'm also the member of the appeal panel of the Privacy Data Protection Council in Singapore. And also lastly, I'm members of the expert panels on cyber security, of the Interpol. And presently, I'm working as an independent strategic business and operations advisors, and also at the same time consultants to the Nanyang Techno Entrepreneur Centers, mentoring students in the entrepreneurship leadership transformations program. As you know, digital technology adoptions is a trend taking place not just recently, but many years ago. However, recently the pace of digital technology adoptions has hastened with the government's policy to promote more digital transformation at the national scale. And the last 1.5 years, we also witnessed the rapid adoptions of digital technology as a strategic business practice due to the pandemic. It is not a choice, but a survival instinct. Companies are forced to embrace more adoptions on digital technology in order to continue with their businesses as a result of the lockdown of physical movements. Digital transformation is unavoidable for enterprise to remain in business in this difficult time and to continue to operate in this new norm in post-pandemic. Some of the key trends of the digital transformations either is self-driven internally or driven by external factors. These are the shifting to cloud computing for cost efficiency considerations, the e-platforms to reach out to your business partners, to your customers, and to government agencies as well. And e-payment today is the de facto mode of payments nowadays, and automations through AI and so on. And the digital economy in Southeast Asia is estimated to grow to US $300 billion by 2025. There's a great opportunity of growth for the regions to ride on this digital technology adoption stack and propel the ASEAN regions to be an important digitally savvy players in the global stage. As a young and dynamic regions of more than 600 million people, ASEAN is well placed to harness the potentials of digital technology to enable both economic progress for the regions and also better living standards for its people. Paradoxically, digitalization brings many new benefits to consumers and businesses in Southeast Asia. It is also exposing them to new risks. Thus, amid the push to adopt more digital technology, we need to also be concerned about the cybersecurity threat posed by malicious actors who are constantly lurking in our cyber front and waiting for opportunity to exploit the weaknesses in our systems for their criminal gain. It is important to take this threat very seriously if you don't wish to be a victim of a cyber attack. So the missions of the cybersecurity and governance chapters is actually to serve the ASEAN community as an enabler for all the digital technology initiative in the ASEAN regions, so as to build a trusted and secure digital ASEAN. So with that missions, I would like to outline some of the short and mid-term plan activities that I have in mind for the chapters. There are 4 important focus areas that the chapters will be working on. The first is in the security, technology, and industry. Trust is a very critical element for successful digital technology adoptions by everyone. But it is often overlooked. Consumers will only go online if they feel confident that the e-services platforms are secure. And it only takes a few breaches of major technology systems for them to start questioning the value of going on a digital, or to become more reluctant to share information electronically. Thus, it is important that the overall technology systems providers adopt a robust set of cybersecurity standards to ensure that their systems are secure and trusted. Hence, there's a need to develop, adopt, and promote security standards to facilitate the adoptions of digital technology within ASEAN. For example, the security standard of IoT devices, healthcare devices, and so on and so on. Yeah, right? And there's a need to provide support and guidance to technology startup companies to build secure systems. Second area is the capacity and capability development. There's a shortage of skill and competent cybersecurity human resource in the ASEAN regions as well. Hence, it is important that associations work on developing cybersecurity capability and capacity in the region so that we have sufficient skill and competent cybersecurity professionals to support the digitalization effort in ASEAN. So we will be exploring partnerships with other stakeholders from industry, international communities, the OECD countries, EU, and other advanced countries in building cybersecurity capabilities in ASEAN, especially for the digital technology developers and the computer emergency response team. To create the opportunity for technical exchange and sharing platforms among the students in ASEAN to hone their technical skills and interact among them. Third is the policies, governance, and the legal aspect. ASEAN region has a shared interest in the enactments of a common set of cybersecurity policies, data governance framework, cybersecurity and privacy law. It works far effectively if we are coordinated and mutually reinforcing, rather than being written in the national silo that ultimately contradict each other and create unnecessary compliance burdens for businesses. So we are looking at promoting the awareness on privacy concerns in digital economy, promote better cyber governance, promote the developments of a set of harmonized legal framework among the member states, for example, in the data privacy and the AI aspect, and to gather support from the top management to give the necessary support for better cybersecurity practices, and plug into the international forums on the discussions of norms of responsible behavior in cyberspace to contribute our input in shaping its developments. Last but not least is the cybersecurity awareness. It is also critical to create greater cybersecurity awareness among the citizens and the businesses so that they could embark on the digital journey confidently. And the success is only possible if they are confident in operating the digital system. For that, we are looking at developing or seeking industry partnerships to establish a cybersecurity-related information sharing hub on ASEAN businesses community, setting up of a victims notification centers to serve as an early warnings for the community in ASEAN, and promote cybersecurity awareness among ASEAN member countries, especially amongst the youth and the civil generations, and promote the adoptions of best cybersecurity hygiene practices among enterprises. Lastly, as you can see, there are a lot of works to be done, and I won't be able to do all this by myself. I will call upon, and actually I would like to call upon men and women in the cybersecurity community to step forward to provide your time and expertise to help me work on this initiative. And I request, if possible, one representative from each ASEAN member countries to form the EXCO And I worked closely with the Secretariat Office to start this process. And I heard there was already some volunteer identified there. And thank once again for entrusting me with these noble missions. And I work hard on it. Thank you. Hong Sin, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ng. That is also a very big commitment. Thank you so much for taking the lead in many of the conversations that we've been working hard as well. And again, we very much want to thank our second trailblazer, Mr. Ng Hu Ming, for sharing his experience, and most of all for defining his vision perspective in terms of how he would like to develop and take this chapter further. Like Prof. Lam, he's opening the invitation to all ASEAN member states to send in or to have the passionate individual who specializes in cybersecurity to be a part of the team to bring this whole huge conversation on ASEAN safety, ASEAN security, and ASEAN prosperity to the next new level. And Mr. Ng actually mentioned about digital transformation, a survival choice, which I never thought of so much. As much as I have been in this industry, I never think it is a survival choice, but rather I thought, okay, this is something that we have to do. But it is so spot on, particularly during this pandemic situation or in this whole new world of COVID. So he specifically also mentioned about those few goals that he aspired to attain, like raising awareness, bringing on partnership, building trust, coming from the angle of not just the digital literate, but actually also going down on the ground where your grandmother, my grandmother are all into this whole digital society where in near time to come where payments are all going to be made online. So and he also brought up one of the close to heart conversation about youth development, and this is so that very detrimental to the cybersecurity industry. I mean, years ago we talk about building standards for cybersecurity, training people, and now he actually also bring up about the youth exchange in terms of honing the technology skill set. So there are lots and lots of conversation that he brought on where we can always recap. But one of the very exciting things that he bring on was also to establish the Breach Notification Center. And these are some of the areas where ASEAN CIO Association, the councillors, and together with the presidents of all the chapters, will be having this discussion further, and we will keep you all updated. So without further ado, we have our third trailblazer. In fact, we are on time as far as our schedule is concerned. Let me now invite I call her Achan Mai. To many people who are new to her, you can call her Dr. Mai. And she is not only known in Thailand, she actually started off serving in ASEAN CIO Association as our Thailand counselor. When Kanchanalan actually opens up the chapter, he actually raised her hand and volunteered to take on this vital conversation on digital leadership, digital entrepreneurship, as well as the very interesting conversation about digital fund. So our trailblazer number 3 would actually be addressing a hot topic that is close to the heart of many young entrepreneurs. In fact, every entrepreneur is young at heart. I'm not referring to age. And accepting the new norm of the pandemic and driving economic resiliency in ASEAN, digital entrepreneurship seen in the region demands countries to review the way to support entrepreneurs and to access funding. How will this work for emerging countries in ASEAN? Just for you to know as well, Dr. Mai, her full name is Dr. Patarawan Prasapani. All right, she's our chapter president for Digital Entrepreneurship and Digital Fund. So she is very known in the Thailand industry, where she served or she works as the faculty member for SASIN School of Management of Chulalongkorn University. She currently is a certified CISA, as in Certified Information System Auditor, and a certified individual for the governance of enterprise IT. And proud of that, she is also serving in ISACA, which is Information System Audit and Control Association. So she's very, very familiar with the conversation of governance, and of course, her research also encompasses digital strategy. Of late, in fact, recently, she is one of the selected researcher for a project for ADB. I will leave her to tell you more about her work. And Dr. Mai, the show is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Hongxin. Thank you for a very nice introduction. So just to check, you can hear me clearly. Okay, all right. Thank you. And first of all, thank you, Khun Chaijaren, and everyone, all the ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, I would like to again thank you, Khun Chaijaren, Dr. Haman, Hongxin, and all ASEAN CIO colleagues that giving me this privileged opportunity to drive this particular chapter. As Hongxin introduced briefly, I think now is the time that we have to really speed up and drive the digital entrepreneurship even further, because from the experience that I've been done the work, as well as the recent work that impact on the COVID and I'm studying, is showing that the importance of why all the countries really need it. So first of all, I like to highlight about why it's very important. So the keyword that Dr. Lam already mentioned about digital entrepreneurship is about the technologies, digital technology, digitalizations, and entrepreneurship itself. So it's how that you can leverage technologies, be able to digitalize in business model, and create the value to the economy. So it's the role of entrepreneur to bring the economic activity into life, and the opportunity that they see from technology, be able to experiment with the business model, and then create value to the consumer and of course the business. And that is how we create economic values. So I like to touch on another two keywords, which is what we've been talking about, the economic resilience, and another one is entrepreneurship resilience. So from the COVID-19 pandemic, so we really need these two things. And from what I've been doing, what I observed, the work I've done, I can confirm that this is what we should really promote from the micro level or the macro level to drive this, because it's really proof about how entrepreneurs can be able to adjust themselves, see the crisis and turn it into opportunity, and help the countries recover from economies. So I can see that the startup, I don't want to just with the word startup, because the digital entrepreneur is much bigger than that. Is that people who have who are entrepreneur and be able to use technology, create commercialize, as Dr. Lam mentioned, that create value to it and be able to have dynamics in a way that to adapt themselves in the situation using technology. So I see the situation that they be able to adjust their business model with their digital assets and turn around and create new opportunities, seek new markets, collaborate and in a short period of time, even totally change the business model and by using technology. And another model that what I'm seeing is that, and thank you, Khun Chaicharan, that giving me the opportunity to dive down into the process. During the crisis, COVID-19, so healthcare is the main issue. So what I hear Khun Chaicharan and also what I've been doing is helping the entrepreneurs. They have the nice solution and they be able to put together and work it for the social mission and use their solution to help address healthcare management of the country. And that is a way to help recover the economy. And some of them can use their solution and offer it in a short period of time. Some of them do it by volunteer, but the way we work as a volunteer is by digital platform. And the way we work is about how the mindset of entrepreneurship work is agile. Everything is with taking risks, and all of this is by the nature of everyone. A lot of them, as Hong Sin mentioned, and Huming is youth. A lot of them is a young generation. They all have the entrepreneurship mindset. It's just a matter of the whole ecosystem, how we're gonna tap into and provide them on that. So what we've been doing is I've been in a privilege to work in the project, as Hong Sin mentioned, with sponsored by the Asian Development Bank, look in the large scale study with 6 ASEAN countries into this particular context, and to dive into what is the mindset of the entrepreneur, how they use technology, what is the challenge they get to tap into the resources, like Dr. Lam mentioned, AI, blockchains, cloud computing, or is a technology, but how they tap into that resources and how they be able to utilize that and turn it into the values. So all of this process is required the whole ecosystems from the micro level and the macro level. So what is the challenge for each country, and how we can share the resources? And a lot of them want to expand the market in the ASEAN level. So how they can do that? If we collaborate in the scale right at the beginning, that they can foresee what is going on in each country, what's the opportunity, what's the ecosystem, who is in there. So it will really speed up this process, tap into different kind of resources. And another aspect is about sustainability. So we've been talking about that a lot. So what I can see is that digital entrepreneurship, or the entrepreneur themselves, be able to tap on this sustainability aspect in the way they do business. Like I mentioned, during the COVID, they be able to mobilize their resource and do it for the social mission, help recover economies, make it sustainable. And all of this is in the mindset of the entrepreneur, and we should embrace that and continue to doing that. So all of this is a thing that we need to drive forward. Another aspect is about the venture, the capital venture, different kind of forms of partnership ventures that we can drive on this. Every aspect, every sector, healthcare sector, education sector, all of this is required different way or different partnership platform in terms of the capital venture, because it have different market conditions. So a different party would play a different role on this part. So overall, I would say that thank you again that Dr. Lam who means that we will work closely with the cybersecurity and the AI, blockchain as a technology, as well as or the ASEAN counselor, of course, other stakeholders in the different aspects to really pull together resources and drive on this. And one major thing is about that we could really do is to access to the resources, the technology, how we can get into the technology across the country. So we probably would would have the same technology. Some have more or less on the other. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just tap on that and ability to turn that into the nice product. So a lot of us have expertise, knowledge that we can be the platform to access into those resources. AI is one of them is good example. President Chaicharan could explain further on that. So the more data that we have, the better is the algorithm. And in the ASEAN level, so the more we collaborate, the more data that is going to be available. So we want the model that developed by ASEAN context, because we're going to be use it in for the Asian market or the ASEAN market. So why don't we just collaborate right at the beginning rather than we do it and we try to push to the market after we finish everything. So all of this is the aspect that we can start it to collaborate right at the beginning from the technology sourcing itself, the funding, or the market. All of these resources is the key to drive entrepreneurship. So could be the platform to mobilize all of this issue through the partner that we have. Like ASEAN CIO, we have a different partner that we MOU with, like Hydro Informatic Institute, handling about the water management, the sector about like agricultural technologies that would love to know about this. So what else? Water management, crisis management, all of this, the technology itself here could be available and help a lot of entrepreneurs who want to do all of the technology related to this, even though partner with the Government Institute of Big Data that serve it for the government. Every government we face the same issue, how we can share the model, and we could be the source of resources to tap into. Another aspect is like from the experience that I do from the research innovation perspective. So if we do the research across the country, so we have the common framework, so we can see things from the common lens, and we see what is good, what is the challenge, what is good things about for each country, and then we can leverage and then see the entrepreneur can see that this country has this country had that. So what is the partner on this? So through the research platform, we can actually have one single data source, and we can share on that and tap into the resource from each country through the research as well. So this is another area that we can do, and that could guide into the policy implications. And then the country access into different network. So each of us has a network from there. So that is something that we could leverage strongly on that. And another thing is sharing. Good example that we've been doing with the President Chaicharan, the solution that we do to help release or address the COVID situations. Different platform technology, we do it quickly, we mobilize it, and that could be replicated and used in another countries. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We probably see the same situation, a same scenario, we can adjust it. And all of this can be done with, if we connect it, we collaborate it, and then this can be make the economy stronger and faster. And so at the end, I think I would say that I'm very honored to be able to work closely with Dr. Lam as that source of the technology to drive the digital entrepreneurship, and also homing in terms of the security, because we cannot just look at the bright side, make sure good things happen. We have to look at that another side of risk perspective, to make sure bad things not happening as well from the security perspective. And from consumer, you can see that right now, everyone turned into the digital, but they may not be able to do it properly. And that could be the threat to consumer themselves. You see a spike of security threats, cybersecurity incidents that tap into like the end consumer a lot. So in just a short period of time due to this COVID-19. So another thing is that to add value to the digital entrepreneurships and to come up with a product that is strong. And that itself could be the selling points or the trusted value that delivered to consumer if they think about security right from the start, as well as from other aspects about the data privacy. So at the end, I'd like to again call on the collaborations from like all the counselors, different countries and other stakeholders that probably you can see that you're already part of the ecosystem here. You probably could be a seeker or you could be a provider. So hopefully we can be a platform through the chapter that we have like both AI, blockchain, security, and all other counselors that we can mobilize to match this seeker and provider, and we can develop things in a large scale in a short period of time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Hong Sin.
Mai. ขอบคุณนะคะ Thank you so much. I just can't stop smiling because you know, all my trailblazers are coming on very like a blade, you know, like they are coming in with fire, energy, commitment. So there are lots of work to do. So a great start, you know, to this whole game-changing promise. And also to have very strong value proposition, you know, to transform this whole huge conversation on digital entrepreneurship. In fact, as in Dr. Mai mentioned about no need to reinvent the wheel, but collaboration again from the third trailblazer about collaboration, open innovation, and promoting all the level on how entrepreneurs see crisis to turn into opportunity. And digital entrepreneurship is not about age, not about being called startup. Rather, digital entrepreneurship is about the evolving of business model during this whole COVID-19 pandemic. But of course, beyond the conversation of pandemic, you know, and to keep life better and better, you know, what are the things that digital entrepreneurship has to do? So it entails a lot of conversation on change as business and society, you know, gets to become closer and not different, and transforming by digital technology as well. Dr. Mai mentioned about, you know, the changes of entrepreneurship practices includes everything that is new or different, that the entrepreneurship basically evolved in the digital world, where, you know, the means of finding new customers, the products offering and services, a new way of designing based on not what they want to create, but rather what the market wants. And you know, and also a huge conversation on the collaboration on the platform, having partners, you know, from the region to work together, and of course, you know, creating a whole brand new opportunity. And of course, opportunity also come with risk, where she mentioned and quoted about 2 other chapters. And of course, on the ground, you know, funding is definitely not to be ignored as we move on to the huge conversation of entrepreneurship. And of course, the country network, where Dr. Mai mentioned about every country has their ecosystem. So how do ASEAN CIO under her chapter could bring all the different organization that focuses on digital entrepreneurship, as since she has just completed her work or still in progress with ADB, she mentioned about 6 other countries. And if each country, if they were to conduct like, or do about like 100 entrepreneurs that they work with, can you imagine 6 countries, 600 digital entrepreneurs. And what does that mean to their whole transformation? It's huge. So the mobilization of resources matters, and it really takes a lot of the level of work where we can bring things together. So moving on, we are on time for our plenary, where I'd like to invite all my three trailblazers to join on this session, where some of the questions are already coming in. So this is actually the exciting moment where all the three trailblazers combine to discuss about chapters in action for today's hot topic on how leaders should or might consider reframing digital transformation. When we talk about digital transformation in ASEAN, as all of us know that ASEAN, are all at different development stages. And each country are uniquely facing a different sets of concern and problems. So how do this conversation comes in consideration of the impact for their businesses with an open mindset in view of possible opportunities in order to manage the challenges, both money or budget and talent, and of course, technology. So Prof. Lam, since you're my first trailblazer number one, I'm gonna come to you first to discuss with you or talk to you about, you mentioned about ethics. Where would be the start point for leaders or for the researcher or for the industry to be looking at, particularly when we talk about the ethics of AI? How easy or complicated is this in ASEAN? Prof. Lam?
Okay, Hong-Sin, thanks for the questions. I think the first thing is, as in other or every aspects of IT applications, the first thing is when we adopt AI, whichever technique that we're talking about, the first thing is to really ask ourselves, what do we want to achieve? Set the objective first. I think it's usually dangerous to say, let's just install it and try it first without knowing what you want to do. And that could easily lead to abuse or misuse of technologies or data. So set a clear objective, and if the objective is convincing, compelling, and is valid, and then we look at when we use it, what are the other implications? And that's why we always talk about the governance framework. And we want to use the AI to help improve our life or operations, but yet without breaching or infringing others' rights or privacy. So, but the best is we set the target first, because if we don't set the target first, we just start to worry about ethics or governance, then we are not getting anywhere. So we just keep worrying every day, but not getting anywhere. So we set the target, we know what we want to achieve, and within the framework of what we are allowed to do, then we see how to get things done. I think that will help manage the complexity of the various problems, what AI to use, how to use AI, and what are the things we should not do. So that is the ethics aspects. Again, I think this is a more pragmatic way to try to balance between the use of new technology and managing the risk of using a new technology. Be very clear about the objective. Okay.
Okay, very interesting. It sounded so simple about just set the target and then go for the target and then talk about what to be done, which is sounds very simple, but in reality across ASEAN, as technology continues to evolve and product vendors continue to identify what they could do to kind of like spearhead the conversation on the product offering. So it gets very, very exciting because it's just like AI is not just about just the businesses, but also AI are actually also being highly deployed in cybersecurity, and in which some are leveraging on AI to make better decisions for predictability and also for prevention measure. But in the case of like how people are also using the data or even using the AI technology to hack into another system, then that comes to another total brand new conversation. So I still would like to, ground to, Prof. Lam, where when we talk about like, is there like, since we earlier talked about leaders that have to actually rewire themselves when talking about AI, and how would these be to take on, like, how should leaders basically take the advantage of AI or even blockchain to actually be competitive or to be able to stay valid in the industry? Because many of their leaders, when they talk about AI, they were just going out to buy something, buy a technology. So is there a better way for the leaders who are interested, who want to leverage on AI to have a better guidance? Yeah.
I think a very important thing to take note of is like any other new technologies, people are very tempted to just get the budget, buy the product and use. But technology is getting more and more complicated, and it's go beyond just within the server room or just face the expert people, but it's actually getting facing the man in the street or the layman. So when we look at the new technology, it's not just about what the AI can do. In order to have the effort to be sustainable and not get frustrated or disappointed, we need to be very clear about, like what I mentioned earlier, the objective, what you want to achieve, what the AI can do. But from my own experience of building intelligent systems for real world use, equally important, if not more important, is the user or the management need to understand what AI cannot do, so that we don't have the wrong expectations. So it is by knowing what it can do so that it can help us, and also knowing what it cannot do, so that we don't just entirely assume that I have the budget, I have the product, I can do the AI can do everything for me. This is wrong. And we have seen a lot of situations that the AI systems are not really doing what we want them to do, or not delivering the expected outcome. Not really the fault of the technology, it's because of the way that we use it. It's not really what the technology is supposed to do. So to come back to the point, how to make better use of the AI or set the mindset. I think, as I said, knowing what we want to achieve, knowing what the AI product can help you, and knowing what is limitation. Knowing the limitation is very important. Knowing what it cannot do, most likely, from our own experience, you may end up having more than one engine or one AI engines to do the work, because some engine is designed specifically to work very well or optimize for one particular scenario or some particular scenarios. So when the situation changed, the scenario changed, it may not work. And then you need to use different types of engines to work together in a coordinated manner. That's why sometimes we look at intelligent systems or smart city systems as a system engineering work, because we need to understand the strength and weakness and limitations of each of the AI technique and see how to use a combination of them to work together to deliver work. So we need to be very target focused rather than being technology driven. We use the technology as a tool to help us, not to be the one that let the technology decide what we want to do. So that is something that I think that's why earlier on I mentioned that promoting awareness to the end user is important, because we have seen how new technology failed very badly because it's over promoted, over promised, and user over rely on it, and at the end, not to say it didn't work, but it didn't work all the time, and people don't pick it up when it worked. People pick it up when it did work, and then it became a disaster, at least a PR disaster.
Okay. Interesting, Prof. Because when we talk about AI, typically we talk about large pool of data, right? Without the data, generally, probably the engine doesn't really work. So, you know, with you know, the conversation of massive data, how do you think leaders need to manage such that they are able to bring the advanced analytics into business, considering the fact that we are also talking about digital transformation? How do the leaders actually have to juggle between the human and the machine?
Okay, one thing I always emphasize is right now we use the AI or intelligent systems as decision support, not decision making. People are very reluctant to accept it when it is called decision making, because eventually it replaces the people. But we emphasize decision support, so it's actually helping the decision maker to be more productive and effective in making decisions, but not to replace the decision maker. And it's also highly dangerous if we leave it to the machine to make the decisions, because like what you mentioned, the AI use data to learn, and whoever have more data will eventually be able to change the decision, because by manipulating data, or because the person or the organization who's willing to come up with more data may eventually influence the decision made by the AI, because data is skewed towards the party who contribute most. And of course, you can look at it positively, it encourages data sharing. But on the other hand, if we just use it this way, it may not fit our purpose, because the decision of the AI is based on the majority of the data that is provided to the machine learning. And this actually leads to another scenario that is of great concern to AI and cybersecurity, which I leave it to Mr. to talk about later. That's what we call the adversarial AI or adversarial machine learning. That is, people try to feed the machine with manipulated data. So the machine learned the wrong thing and make the wrong decisions. We have seen quite a number of examples even reported in the media about chatbot by people asking nonsense, and then the machine will keep those as data to train the machine, and eventually the chatbot keep talking about nonsense. Yeah. So these are some of the issues related to data sharing. But at the larger scale, about the framework for how to manage the collection of the data, access to the data, sharing of the data, I think it's more of a cybersecurity and governance issue. But what I mentioned is mainly from my own experience of using the data to deliver what AI wants to achieve.
Thank you, Prof. You know, I have a attendee that actually have raised her interest to ask the question. May I invite Madeline Tan? You have a question for Prof. Lam, right?
Yes, thank you, Hong Sin.
Yes.
Thank you. Big thanks to all the presenters on the wonderful, inspiring, and very generous sharing. I have a question for Prof. Lam. And you have somewhat touched on that topic already. Let me just rephrase this question again. I was interested to know, in view of increasing adoption of AI across several industry domains today, and many sandboxes still ongoing, and in many instances, such deployments or even adoption are very prescriptive in nature. So do you think it is a good time right now to actually introduce industry-specific AI standards, yardsticks of sort, with threshold and measurements on, earlier on you mentioned data accuracy, data performance and data feed. Therefore, is there a way to measure the AI outcome accuracy within a collaborative framework and compliance that is managed by cybersecurity policies? That is.
Good point. So if you look at the entire AI ecosystems, it involves, as I mentioned earlier, about the data governance and the security or protection of data access. This, if of course, go under another chapter. But another part of the ecosystem is really about after we have access to the data, we use it to train the model. And how do we measure the performance? How do we measure the accuracy? Now, this is the point, a very good point, that usually lead to a lot of frustration. I have seen a lot of real-world situations that an AI technique in the lab environment during the evaluation or testing claim to be very high accuracy. But when it's used in real-world environment or in the real deployment, it failed very badly. Now, this is again, like what I mentioned earlier, understanding the scenario that the AI engine is good for, is designed for. And usually for those lab environments, it's really for matching the assumed environment. And that's why it usually works very well. But in live deployment, we can control, for example, the noise of the background. So the speech recognition may not work very well. The lighting of the environment, so the facial recognition doesn't work very well. And documents with rubber stamp and things like that. And the document analytics cannot perform very well. So these are things that is beyond the AI technique itself, but need to be addressed in order to make it perform properly. So coming back to your point, so I think also in order to make it easy, the life easier for AI developers or technology players, some type of framework or benchmark or reference standard will be useful, at least for people to say that, okay, my technique will work very well under a certain defined environment. Under the framework, I need to provide the specification. It's like even when you get a car, the car will also have the specification about what environment is supposed to work well. So yeah, and then so that is about having a framework to allow technology players to specify what the engine environment is designed for. And second is how to assess the performance. This is another big problem. If we use a academic or theoretical way to measure AI performance, one of the typical problems is it may not be what the user wants. This happens very frequently in speech analytics or text analytics, because when it comes to speech analytics or text analytics, the performance is just based on calculating the percentage of work that is done correctly and the percentage of work that is not done correctly. But certain words carry more meaning in our language. Certain words carry more meaning. Some of the words disappear, you still can guess. But some of the words disappear, it could be opposite meaning, it could be meaningless, become nonsense. So if you just use a simple equations to measure, it may not get what you want. So in our own experience, what we do is, instead of relying on just applying this type of mathematical way of measuring performance. And we define our methodologies. We identify some domain experts or users. So after we produce the system, we let the user select a number of sample input, and then we let them assess whether the output or the outcome is relevant, is what they want, or is useful. Then with this is a better way to assess the effectiveness or the performance of the systems. And of course, what I mentioned is still a kind of evolving process, starting from an ad hoc way of addressing the problem. But going forward, it could work well if we really have a coordinated efforts to really define it as a methodologies or as a framework to guide the measurement of AI accuracy. So there are so many things we can do together to address this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Lam. Yeah, totally agree with the fact that it has to be very domain specific. It has to be very contained within that field operations. Appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Lam. Thank you, Hong Sin.
Thank you, Madeline. If I may ask, which organization do you represent?
At the moment, I'm working with IBM. I'm a consulting partner with IBM.
I see. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay. Prof, thank you very much. And I have to roll on to Hu Ming because there are similar questions that come in for cybersecurity, but I generally put everything into one question for Hu Ming, so it's going to be a very big question. Kun Chancellor, would you want to just ask the question first, or you want me to let you ask the question later? Can I proceed?
Yeah, can I ask Mr. Lam a little bit?
Okay, sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's about the project that I initiated about 1.5 months now. It's cross country actually, because of the COVID. The COVID patient who have X-rays. I mean, each countries we have X-rays. Thailand we have 1,000. The X-ray films is about 1,000 digital films for the what you call patient COVID patient for COVID-19 patient. So we would like to share with our friends, other countries, big countries, in order to train the AI models for more accurate. So we have issues on what you call confederated models, on standardized, on various things. How can we, because pandemic like this, we need it fast, but now we stuck 1.5 months already. Technology is there, model is there, just to have more and more samples to train, more and more COVID X-ray films in order for thousands. Why don't we, amongst ASEAN, share the X-ray COVID films, patient film? So it's going to be 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. So the model is going to be more accurate in order to help to identify the COVID patient on the next stage. It's really difficult for us ASEAN to reach to that point. How can we? I need your help to push forward on this project too. Please share your thought.
Is to me or to Hu Ming?
Oh, to you, to Lam.
Okay. Yep. This is the area that we are actively working on under federated learning. That is again addressing what I mentioned earlier. To improve the accuracy, we need data sharing, but people are bound by those privacy regulations or data protection regulations. So they're not supposed to exchange data. And in this context of this COVID, it's especially sensitive because it's health related and have very stringent data protection regulations. And for that reason, we've been working very actively on this area that is federated learning. So And as Hong Xin introduced, I'm also heading the Strategic Research Center for Privacy Preserving Technique. That is to encourage AI and data sharing without breaching the data protection regulations. So for that, if you have this problem in mind, so what we can do is we identify a number of potential partners in this machine learning or the federated learning. Then we can help look at number one, suggest the architecture or even the algorithm or technique for achieving the federated learning. And then of course, the infrastructure for protect the federated learning platform. We can get input from Mr. Ng. But on the federated learning itself and how to protect the partial model, because when we do federated learning, each of the stakeholders or each of the countries will have their own model. And because of the smaller size of the samples, we call it a partial model. And then we exchange the partial model. So in this case, we also develop techniques to protect leakage of information from the partial model, because from experimental results, it is also possible to leak some of the health information by analyzing the partial model. So that is what we have done from the research angle. So so to answer your point, I think we can look at it as an initiative to gather a number of potential collaborators that we provide the advice or even the technique to support this federated learning, and then we can get the input from Mr. Ng to say that this is cyber secure. Okay.
Is that okay? Do you have any more questions?
Okay. No. Thank you. Thank you very much, then.
Thank you very much. Maybe you can reach out to Prof. Lam because both of you are supposed to have a conversation. So you can tap on his expertise and see how you can take the COVID Digital Conqueror project further to some of the other rest of the member states. So, Mr. Ng, so sorry, I need to jump on to you. Prof. Lam, thank you very much for time being. No question flowing in yet for AI, but I still have others coming in. So let me ask the question to Hu-Ming first, because as a digital transformation of business picks up in speed, cybersecurity increases its importance. I mean, its importance. And embracing new technology, people just cannot go out and keep buying technology, defines the company's competitiveness on the market today. What are the considerations for both internal and external processes, particularly right now with working from home, and also training of staff, perhaps also most crucially, implementing new approaches to cybersecurity? Sorry, it's a long question, but there are similar questions that comes in for this, so I put all in one. So you can take 10 minutes to answer.
Thank you, Hong Xin. Okay, thanks for this very challenging questions. Okay, let me try to attempt to answer the questions at the strategic frames levels, and at the same time, I will provide some practical tips. Okay, for the practitioners. Okay. It will take a while. Okay, it's not going to be a 1 minute answer. Okay, just bear with it. Okay, as you already know, okay, the pandemic has accelerated the pace of digital technology adoptions in the last 1.5 years. Businesses, government agency, and even individuals, they all have to live with this new norm. Therefore, embracing the digital technology in order to continue its business operations and to lead a normal daily life. But At the same time, as what you mentioned, cyber attackers and criminal activities has also been taking advantage of this trend to pursue their ill intentions. So we have seen many reported incidents of ransomware and data breaches. And increasingly, the ransomware attacks take the form of multifaceted extortions. So besides encrypting the data, it also includes an extortion elements that usually involve the threats to leak the stolen data publicly or on the dark web if the payments isn't made. So what should be the proactive approaches that an organizations should adopt to protect themselves from falling prey to these attacks? Let me cite a few examples, okay, as we can witness, in the last 2 years, we have seen some high impact cyber incidents that catches the news headlines globally, okay. So as we set the context and try to understand the impact of all these incidents, okay. In early 2020, the attack of the SolarWinds left 18,000 of its customers vulnerable to hackers. And the SolarWinds attacks impacted some Fortune 500 companies and multiple agencies in the US government. And in May this year, the ransom attacks on the Colonial pipelines in the United States resulted in the shutdown of their operations. And the consequence of all this was the shortage of fuel, panic buying by consumer, and forcing the governments to declare a state of emergency. And barely a few months later, the attacks on Kisaya involve a ransom amount that is astronomical. The US $70 million is the biggest in the history of cyber attacks. And at home in 2019, the Personal Data Protection's PDPC has slapped a fine of $750,000 on the HIS and $250,000 on SingHealth for breaching their data protection obligations under the Data Protections Act. And the most recent victims of ransom attacks and data breaches is in Singapore, is an eye and retinal clinic in Singapore, which involved the potential exposures of 73,000 of their patients. Okay, and similarly, I read a lot of reports about some incidents happens in our regional countries as well. Okay, and according to the Singapore cyber security landscape reports 2020, the number of cybercrime in Singapore accounted for 43% of the overall crimes in 2020. And the number of phishing attacks handled by the SingCert has also increased. An increase of 154% of ransomware cases reported to the authority compared with that of 2019 figures. And according to Singapore cyber landscapes, the victims of ransomware and data breaches are no longer confined to large organizations and critical information infrastructure operators. Most of the cases reported were from the small and medium enterprises. Okay, and the consequence of a successful attack could be catastrophic, huge business impact, reputation damage, monetary loss, financial fine imposed by the regulatory authorities, and in Singapore, you may even be jailed if you are found to be willfully non-compliance of the law if you're operating a critical information infrastructures providing essential services. And under the Singapore Enhanced Personal Data Protections Act, if there's a data breach, you must inform the victims in a timely manner. And failing to protect the data, you can be fined up to $1 billion. So the worst is, all these incidents could even impact the viabilities of the business altogether. And to the individuals working in the victimized company, the cyber incidents could have a direct impact on you. For example, if you are the CISO, you are one of the most consistent casualties of any cybersecurity incidents. It also poses poses risks for the C-level executive, as evidenced in some of the earlier incidents happens in Target, the Home Depot, Sony, and so on. They were either forced out, resign, or retired early follow major incidents. So, but I find very often in some of these incident report, we will see the descriptive work like attack on the supply chain. It is highly sophisticated state or state-sponsored actors. So it made me always wonder, is it really a direct attack on the supply chain? Or is it really so sophisticated? Or is it something that more fundamentally wrong in our approach to defend our digital asset? So what I find missing in this incidents reporting was actually the actual initial root cause analysis. According to most of the reports published recently, the most common way ransomware is deployed into a system is actually via email phishing campaigns. And phishing campaigns continue to evolve and are becoming increasingly sophisticated and targeted. And according to some studies, there are hundreds of millions of phishing attacks per day globally. First, phishing is the first delivery mechanism for other type of malicious software. A phishing attack isn't just targeted at gaining information. Phishing attack can also be used to distribute malicious programs, such as a ransomware. And email attachments are still the main method of delivery for malicious programs. Second, 97% of the users cannot identify a sophisticated phishing email. And according to the SENS Institute, 95% of all the attacks on enterprise network are the result of a successful spear phishing. And 85% of the organizations have suffered from phishing attacks. These attacks are everywhere, and most organizations will encounter them at one point or another. So to me, it is obvious in consolidating and understanding the root cause of all these incidents, it is obvious that phishing is the most common attack technique deployed by hackers to establish the initial bridgehead into your systems, into your network. So if we can stop it from coming into our network or system, or isolate the phishing attacks to minimize the impact, and I believe, okay, we will win half of the battle. So let me just share with you some of the common findings of all these victimized organizations. What are the commonality? What are the common problems identified in all these victimized organizations? First, they are connected directly to the internet. It is obvious, okay? And this organization allow remote access for high privilege tasks like administrative tasks. You have a very flat network architectures, and you don't have visibilities of your digital asset. So what should be the proactive approaches that an organization's senior leaders need to consider to protect themselves against such an attack? I always want to remind the audience or to the senior executive that cybersecurity is a C-suite responsibility. It is a responsibility of all executive business leaders and boards to be aware of and effectively manage cybersecurity risks, and to ensure that the appropriate measures are in place, and to foster a culture in which cybersecurity really does matter. If cybersecurity matters to the chair and to the board, that will trickle down and becomes a priority for the whole organizations. According to the executive studies conducted some time ago by IBM and the Economist Intelligence Unit found that 2/3 of the C-suite executive survey view cybersecurity as a top concerns, outstripping even concerns about financial risk. And the same proportions were highly confident that their cybersecurity plan were well established. But only less than 20% actually demonstrated a high degree of cybersecurity preparedness, preparations, and governance. So the leader of an organization should not be just contented with a plan on paper. You need to improve your cybersecurity governance. And cybersecurity governance should not be viewed as an obstruction to operations. It is an enabler for operations to carry on despite the increasing presence of cyber threat and attacks. Individuals, businesses, and governments all have an obligation to enhance cybersecurity and nurturing governance. We must recognize that cybersecurity is an investment and not a cost. Any business that is embarking on their digital transformation journey needs to consider cybersecurity seriously. Yes, the basis is that your business needs to be faster, better, cheaper, but it also needs to be secure to provide assurance to your customers. Cyber-secure companies not only survive, they also scale and thrive. And cybersecurity has to be managed at higher levels to ensure that it is not divorced from the business imperative. Yet, it is still aligned to industry best practices and national regulatory frameworks. For the enterprise leadership, you need to understand cybersecurity yourself to make informed business decisions on risk management, because it is critical to your bottom line. So the questions that the leadership needs to an answer to is, does your organization invest enough in cybersecurity protections measures? And do you know the security effectiveness of your security investments? Do you have a technical means to continuously validate the effectiveness of your security defense in a timely manner? So I like to quote an example, okay, of an incident that I investigated some time back. Okay, after the major incidents, I give a long list of recommendations to the senior management. The feedback from the senior management is, but why? I've already passed on my updates. Okay, why I still have such a long list of recommendations for me? Okay, so you need a proactive approach rather than a passive reactive audit frameworks. You need to continuously validate the effectiveness, okay, rather than waiting for the annual audit exercise, because it is a time specific and it is always behind the attack cycle. Okay. So the next question is, does organizations already have a cybersecurity governance program? Does it include a set of procedures and plan to execute those procedures? And what are the contingency plans for dealing with a cyber incidents? Have you practiced those plans? And are the people in your organizations familiar with cybersecurity? So for the start, we need to put in place a sound cybersecurity governance framework. What the management can do is to ask themselves the following questions and decide how to proceed. What systems and data are critical and most important to us? Who have access to these systems and data? And who is protecting these systems and data? How well are the systems and data protected? And how do we better protect what is critical and important to us? Most importantly, to the senior leaders, you need to develop what I call a cybersecurity readiness maturity index to help you assess the state of cybersecurity maturity in the 4 areas. First, risk-based mitigations. Second, early detections. Third, robust response. Fourth, speedy recovery. And this index will help and facilitate effort in managing cyber risk by identifying very specific capability in this area mentioned as a matrix of cybersecurity maturity, and also facilitate you to develop a systematic actions plan to improve the governance and the procedures. So much so for the strategic frames, okay? But at the technical controls measures, I would like to share with you and highlight a few points for your considerations, okay? First, there are 3 principles to address attacks coming into your systems, okay? And these are very basic and very simple principles. The first principles, disconnect yourself from untrusted network. And in this case, most often is internet, if there is no business need to connect to internet, okay? Second, implement a one-way diode to connect your network to external network if there's a genuine business requirement to transfer data from your network to external network or vice versa. Okay, and the third principles, design a secure two-way communications gateway to connect your network to external network if there's a business requirements to have a two-way exchange of information. Okay, what I'm advocating here is that I'm not saying that you should not be allowed to connect to internet, but I'm saying that, okay, go in with the eye open and connect to the untrusted network internet in a secure manner. Okay, so if you follow these principles, I'm very sure you will mitigate more than 90% of the security problem a typical organization face today. Beyond that, you need, okay, to adopt an additional security control to address the remaining threat. First, you must have full visibilities and continuous monitoring. Most critically is to account for all privilege access, privilege escalations, and the creation of account with administrative rights. Okay, it relates to the physical world in the banking and financial sectors. All the banks, at the end of the day, they will do a bank account consolidations. Even a missing cents, okay, they have to get to the bottom in order to close the daily operations. Similarly, in the cyber world, all the critical sensitive activities, account creations like what I mentioned and so on, have to be accounted for, because that is the telltale sign of a potential attack, a potential breach of the systems. Second, applications is of paramount importance. Weak software codings contributes to the problems. For example, a lot of administrators, a lot of software developers, they embed administrator password in their applications code. This is straight no-no, okay? And this is the gold mine for the hackers. They can retrieve your credentials easily, okay? Third, secure storage of encryption's key, for example, your private key. It is important, okay? You have a strong encryption algorithm systems, but if you don't manage your key properly, it doesn't help in protecting your systems and your data. The fourth, Never allow sharing of administrators' account. Don't give administrators' accounts to everybody's in your environment, because then it is very difficult to pinpoint, okay, where the attack is coming from. Use dedicated machines, okay, for administrative tasks. Don't allow the administrators to use the same computers for his day-to-day email exchange, serving internet, and at the same time use it for system and network administrations. And network segregations, it is very important to have a separate network segment for administrative tasks. If remote access is allowed, you really need to implement very strong two-factor authentications and also time-based access controls. Okay, and with that, so much for the strategic frame and the technical tips. But I would always like to end my presentation with a story. Okay, and my sharings of the bird watchers. Okay. There's two bird watchers in the jungle. Okay, most of you would have heard about this part of the story. Okay, the two bird watchers in the jungle. Okay, one of them is a couch potato. So the couch potato asked the athlete, "What will you do, okay, if you encounter a tiger?" The athlete answered, "Run away as quickly as I can." The couch potato replied, "But you can't outrun the tiger." And to which the athlete responded, "I don't have to outrun the tiger. I only have to outrun you." Okay, so this is the first part of the story. Okay? And the second part of the story is the two bird watchers in heaven. After being eaten by the tigers, the couch potatoes is waiting at the pearly gates, where along comes the athlete close behind. And with the last recollections of seeing the athlete spitting out in front and smelling the tiger breath, the couch potato greet the athlete, and after exchanging some pleasantry, he asked, "What happened? When I was killed, you were way up ahead of me." And to which the athlete responds, "There was another tiger." So just because you are not quite an easy target, it doesn't mean you are not targeted. If the goal is to stop casual attack, a small amount of perimeter defense is adequate. But is that the right goal? Today's cyber threat actors are more sophisticated, persistent, and with unlimited resources. So if you are in the jungle, tigers will come. No matter how good an athlete you are, you still cannot outrun a tiger. So in this rapidly evolving environment, those who fail to adapt fail to survive. And the cyberspace is challenging, okay, it's changing at a rapid rate, which means that we must also adapt at a rapid rate if we are to survive. If you don't keep track of emerging attacks technology, it is highly likely that you will soon become vulnerable to them. And if you are networked to the rest of the world, it is almost certain that attackers will come. Okay? So the push for efficiency and convenience should not come in the cost of cybersecurity. There must be no trade-off between the two. We must strive for both just as much. I hope I answered the questions, and I hope it is useful to you. Thank you.
Mr. Ng, thank you very much. I learned a story today about the tiger and also hell and heaven. So, I mean, the reality about cybersecurity, you never know when it will happen, but being prepared, getting ready, I think these are basic. Well, having said that, my key takeaway from this whole good sharing of yours it has also benefited a lot of the people online that may not necessarily be on Zoom. Is that you really got to do your homework in order to quote unquote be prepared and be ready. And one key conversation that Mr. Ng mentioned about cybersecurity is a C-suite board as well as the chairman's responsibility. And this is so real that leaders of the world or even in the businesses have to do something about this and take up this conversation very seriously. And cybersecurity is an investment to support in terms of the whole huge conversation on digital transformation. At this point of time, we have not really seen like any large corporate that really emphasize a lot on this, but definitely many of them are working hard. Probably after this whole conversation, Mr. Ng may be conducting some workshop where we will keep most of, in fact, all of you updated if the workshop materialize. So going on to the third Trailblazer, we're on time, slightly over time, but this question is very important to Dr. Mai. How leaders actually use the digital world as a source of innovation for their customers. Like how do they design new products or even like new business units or even new services. So with your focus in digital entrepreneurship as well as the digital fund, how far would you take this conversation to by 2025 since we are aligning to the ASEAN Digital Master Plan? Atamai, over to you.
Okay, so from what I'm see and experience and have the insights and all of this, I think from the start in terms of access into the resources, the technology, which is a key enabler that will drive them into like successful digital entrepreneur. Many of them have they are the technology by themselves. Then, or some of them it's just the business persons. They need to look for the technology. I think the process that at the beginning of the founding, the matching of the skill set of technology and the business that can see through technology themselves and can see the business opportunities. All of this is, many of them done is nicely, but there's still some that is still a lot of challenges. And this process is like, is not available in the textbooks. It's something that they learn by experience, and the sharing, the insights, something that we could help to speed up the process, that would be very helpful. And another thing in terms of the ecosystem that would help the networking to tap into these resources is also another thing. However, the challenge would be many stakeholders offer different aspects of the support, but no central source of information that we know at this stage of their development. And I'm missing this kind of resources. What type of organizations or the program that we should be at this particular stage and particular resource that I would need? They would think that they would need it, but it may not be appropriate. And they go back and forth on this process. And that is really drain out the resources from both sides, from the provider as well as the seeker. So all of this is a lot of things that we need to work it out. We have a good case that example that they done well, and they're willing to be approachers for the new generations. And as well as another thing that I have seen is and witnessed the phenomenon is a lot of materials, the thing that we've been talking about is actually from the West, but it's not totally applicable in the ASEAN context or in Asia. because the level of technology development, the mindset, the culture, the financial policies in the organization as an adopter, which is the market, also different. So subscription model may not be applicable at the scale in the ASEAN context because the financial structure, the budgeting policies, they may not see technology as expenses that could be software as a service. They could see as an investment at this point. So they have to find a way to have flexible business model, flexible revenue models and pricings along the way to accommodate this. And all of this insight is still sitting in the mind of the entrepreneur who struggle and then being successful. But a lot that's gonna be the next generation, the one that is been doing, they still have a challenge on this. So hopefully with our chapter here alongside with all the partner, we can play an active role and see these challenges and pull together resources to actually help the young entrepreneur or the new generation of the entrepreneur to actually leverage and pull resources on the ecosystems. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mai. Thank you very much, Dr. Mai. Yes. And you know, it's this all the questions and concern that was being raised. I believe that subsequently after today, we will be organizing some follow-up workshop or even follow-up discussion open to ASEAN with regards to the different topics that our three trailblazers are addressing. So I'd like to also mention that while we are in this conversation of introducing the three chapters, very interestingly, there is this lady, let me get her name right. Yes, there's this lady where Prof. Lam has highlighted, Dr. Nozaina Binti Jamil from Malaysia has expressed interest in supporting the AI and blockchain chapter. Dr. Nozaina, are you still on the call?
Hello, hi, Quack.
Hello, hi. Thank you for jumping in support and in interest of you know, the AI and blockchain chapter. So I learned from Prof. Lan that you have raised your hand and have expressed interest to be a part of the ASCO team.
Yeah, my pleasure, and I'm very looking forward to involve and learn from the experts here as well.
Okay, all right. Trailblazer, you know, Mr. Ng, and Trailblazer, Dr. Mai, you know, you all will have to also do your enrollment. So maybe your enrollment, like cybersecurity, is secret, you know. So entrepreneurs have to be considering how they're going to come in. But thank you so much for being part of the team, and we definitely welcome any one of you who want to be a part of this whole growing chapter. And we will, you know, I'm gonna like put forth my email address such that you all can send to me if you would like to be a part of this chapter. hskwek@acioa.com. This is my email address. And if not otherwise, you can also jump onto Facebook or some of the social media and connect up with us. And today, you know, I would like to say that we have concluded in terms of launching our 3 chapters. And I'd like to thank our amazing trailblazer, the 3 chapters, president for taking on a vital role and leading this whole change and transformation. And I would also like to thank, you know, Tante Jelena Tutet for, you know, taking half of his day to join us during his busy schedule. And for those who are watching online, again, I'd like to thank all of you from different parts of the world for jumping on for this morning talk. drop in as well. Thank you so much and have a great day. If I may wrap up the session. Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.